This is Free Talk Live. Take control of the airways. Call in and tell us whatever's on your mind. That number's 855-450-3733. 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live. With you tonight is Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And you brought in a story about is it Gorsuch or Gorsuch?
I pronounce it Gorsuch.
But he does suck. So.
Well, you aren't a big fan generally of these people, so I wouldn't imagine that there's too many people on the Supreme Court that you like.
Fair point.
I think that Gorsuch is probably the lesser of evils on the Supreme Court. And
really?
I do.
I don't know that much about him or his policies. I did, I learned what everybody was talking about when he was first proposed as a Supreme Court justice, but that was 2 years ago. It's all out of my head by this point. I remember he was characterized as a constructionist.
Yeah.
Is that it?
And I like that.
I would prefer that over a revisionist or a whatever they're called.
Yeah, the rest of them.
Well, it depends on what you want to revise it to.
It depends on what?
It depends on what you want to revise it to. That's kind of a relative statement. And I mean, like a literally relative statement. The Constitution doesn't really say much about what you can and can't do. So if you're revising it to things I like, then cool. If you're revising it to things I don't like, I don't put a lot of stock in the Constitution, so I don't care if you're following the Constitution.
Well, the Constitution should, according to what it says, basically limit the federal powers to those that are, mentioned specifically, enumerated in the Constitution, and ones that aren't.
Right. They're reserved to the states or to the people.
I think that it takes, for one, the federal government has this little trick where it's like, well, we're going to do something, and then if the states want this funding that we're offering, then they can participate. So it's voluntary.
I mean, and that's not prohibited by the Constitution.
It's not.
So, I mean, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that the federal government can't do business with the states.
That's right.
So all those high laws that get in through highway funding are perfectly constitutional.
Yeah.
But, I mean, there was something in the Constitution about direct and unapportioned taxes, which is how the federal government acquires this money to use to sort of bend the states to their will in the first place.
Well, they...
until they amended it.
Right, they amended the 16th Amendment for income tax, whatever you might believe on how legal that was.
Yeah.
But there's all kinds of stories.
It's just as legal as any other amendment.
Well,
it's legal because they said it was, and they're the ones with the guns.
Well, that's how laws work.
Yeah.
That's what a law is. You have enough guns, and you say to do something, it's a law now.
But everything else is illegal, apparently, according to Gorsuch, or at least we're all criminals, it would seem.
Right, and this is, I think, a very relevant point. For those that like the idea of a nation of laws, and I like the idea of a nation of laws. I was sold on that in my youth. Yeah, that sounds good. But you really, there's a point when it goes too far, and if that point is, like everybody's guilty of something, then you don't have a nation of laws anymore. You just have a nation of serfs.
If you're not committing a federal crime, like I would say, probably hopefully once a week, then your house is really dirty, and you should start committing federal crimes again. At least those ones.
Can you explain that?
Okay, so you know those labels on cleaning supplies that say it is a federal offense to use this in contradiction of the instructions?
I have never read one of those.
I'm a really boring person, and I read labels.
I read the backs of cereal boxes.
Not so much anymore because I have stuff to do, but like when I was a kid, I would just read everything that was there. So that's for real. It's not necessarily for real on everything they slap it on, but anything that is disinfectants or antimicrobial, that's for real.
But I mean, how are people using these in a way that's counterindicated?
I mean, so
nobody,
unless you stand there and you're like, okay, I'm going to measure however many inches when I spray this Lysol, and I'm going to open all the windows in my house, and I'm going to measure bleach before I pour it in the washing machine. Like, there's a really detailed, obnoxious instructions on cleaning supplies.
Wow.
There you go. It's a federal crime.
Always good to be confessing to our criminality.
And the defense that I typically get from people is, well, I have somebody else do it. Well, congratulations. Now you're guilty of conspiracy to clean your house.
In a recent dissenting opinion, Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch warns of the dangers of the modern expansion of criminal law to the point where, in quotes, almost anyone can be arrested for anything.
Now he's speaking out against that.
Yes.
Awesome. That's a positive development.
History shows that governments sometimes seek to regulate our lives finely, acutely, thoroughly, and exhaustively. History shows that governments sometimes seek to? Come on.
Yeah,
Has
always.
there really been a government that hasn't attempted to regulate your life finely, acutely, thoroughly, and exhaustively?
Well, once you've gone to law school and probably once you've had some other things happen to you, you're no longer comfortable with making definitive statements most of the time. So he might just be like, well, I haven't studied every government throughout history, so I'm not going to definitively say there hasn't been one. So I'm just going to go with most of the time. That might be where he's coming from.
In our own time and place, criminal laws have grown so exuberantly and come to cover so much previously innocent conduct that almost anyone can be arrested for something. If the state could use these laws, not for their intended purposes, but to silence those who voice unpopular ideas, little would be left of our First Amendment liberties. And little would separate us from the tyrannies of the past or the malignant fiefdoms of our own age. The freedom to speak without risking arrest is one of the principal characteristics by which we distinguish a free nation. And that's from some lawsuit, Houston versus Hill, that we're quoting there. And this is really important. If somebody is, creating a kerfuffle and the government doesn't like it, and then they go and find something that they've done wrong, none of us are going to have a problem if this is rape, murder, or arson, right?
Right.
However, oh wow, they suddenly figured out that the rapist, murdery arsonist is having political speech. But if instead what they do is they go after somebody for, I don't know, obstruction of justice, for instance, this is a crap charge, and I don't care who gets it. I'm not here to support the president, Donald Trump, but I am here to say, obstructing which justice? For what?
It's kind of a dishonorable charge, in my opinion. Maybe I have really weird... I'm almost using, and I've never been, around these people enough to... But I'm almost using, gang or mafia honor type thing. And it's like, well, you're penalizing me because we fought and you lost. That shouldn't be on those grounds. It just strikes me as really dishonorable. I'm charging you because I messed up.
As far as I'm concerned, if a police officer is arresting you for something that is not illegal, like you have done nothing wrong, and you punch the police officer in the nose, that's a resisting arrest if you've done something wrong. But if you're not, you're defending yourself against an attacker. Now, I
would agree.
How and why they don't like that, because nobody likes to get punched in the nose for mistakes. But, nobody has a problem with punching me in the nose when I make mistakes.
Well, if you attempt to assault and kidnap them, you should expect to be punched by people who don't deserve to be assaulted and kidnapped. A police officer who's arresting
somebody who has not committed a crime is committing assault and kidnapping. And a punch in the nose is a low price for such a thing.
Yeah, if I go around starting physical altercations, I expect to be hit back. It's kind of insane not to.
Now, I'm not saying that this is a good idea. I'm not suggesting it or
no,
anything
you'll
like
die.
that.
Don't do it.
Right, don't do that. But what I'm saying is, as far as Donald Trump goes, is it's pretty disingenuous to charge somebody with obstruction of justice if you have nothing that justice was after. If justice wasn't after anything, there's no charge, i.e. there is no charge, then how could you have obstruction of justice? Secondarily, are you telling me I shouldn't hide things from people who want to lock me up? What do you think I am, stupid? Come on. The founding fathers who were willing to shoot the British center of mass to drive their officers through with bayonets would not have said, oh, yes, it's very important you testify against yourself. Only a lunatic, only a bunch of Washington morons would say this.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE, as in freedom, 855-450-3733. Tell us what's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live. Tell us what's on your mind, 855-450-3733, or use the Discord call lines at discord.freetalklive.com. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And we've been talking about Gorsuch and his surprising statements, because I'm surprised by it.
I'm not.
It is not uncommon for there to be some philosophically sound, just kind of almost academic-like statements in dissenting opinions.
It is a dissenting opinion, that's true. What is he dissenting from, exactly?
I didn't see that part. Reason Magazine didn't seem if that's mentioned, it's mentioned farther down that I thought was worth reading. Like, I'm like, right. Oh, yeah, this is great. And I just sort of saved it for the on-air file.
See, it concerns me because if this is the dissenting opinion, that governments use their power to abuse, the whole population, then what would the majority opinion be? That governments somehow don't, so it's okay for our government to have more power? To me, it's a critical question of what he's dissenting from.
Well, this is kind of one of the reasons that I do believe that there's a difference between Republicans and Democrats. What I've called the good Supreme Court justices, or the ones that have made the best decisions and the best dissents at this point, tend to be appointed by Republicans, and the ones that are the worst tend to be appointed by the Democrats. I'm not saying that there can't be a little bit of chafe either way, but the shtick that there's not a single bit of difference between these people, I don't believe that. I tend to believe that the Republican presidents, although they suck in a whole bunch of different ways, make better Supreme Court nominations, which is probably the most important thing they can do.
Sure.
I would agree with that, but it's only relevant in very few election cycles.
Yep. It's only relevant in very few Supreme Court decisions. The vast majority of Supreme Court decisions, as I understand it, are 9-0.
Really?
Yes.
I was not aware of that.
No.
I'm not surprised.
No, I can go pull that up for you a little later before you, counselor, before you get all riled up. I've got something to back that up with. So I'll pull that up for the next segment, and then you can go.
Okay, yeah, I want to see that.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, the Supreme Court, as Rothbard pointed out in Anatomy of the State, is fundamentally flawed because it is part of the state. We're essentially asking the state to determine what is and isn't permissible for the state to do.
I agree with you, and fundamentally that's going to be a problem. But, if you're talking about somebody who's paid to be fair-minded, maybe they can be fair-minded a little bit sometimes. And if that's the case, then maybe they'll make some good decisions sometimes, which will limit the growth of the state in some ways.
They have done a very poor job of it, historically.
Yep, the state's growing. But that's because the state will figure out ways to grow, even if there are limits placed on it.
Right. Which is what the Constitution, as we were talking about, was supposed to be. It was supposed to not be a limitation on government power, but a strict enumeration on what the government could and couldn't do.
So much for that.
Yeah. That was thrown out long ago. But Gorsuch, as I understand it, is an advocate that the Constitution should be taken in that particular context, which is great. But he's not. He's clearly still just a part of a minority, even on the Supreme Court.
At the very least, he has given me a quote that I can now use whenever the rule of law people call in. Right?
Absolutely.
So, the rule of law people call in on the regular, especially on a Saturday night here on Free Talk Live, and they're like, well, you need the rule of law. And I'm all for the rule of law. But the problem is that, when you just say that, first off, the politicians don't follow the law, so you don't have rule of law. You only have rule for the serfs.
Right.
And that's not rule of law, not by any definition of it that I've ever been given. But fine, let's operate by that standpoint. When you have enough laws, as Gorsuch says, where anyone can be convicted of anything, almost anyone can be arrested for anything, then all you need is a law enforcement officer who thoroughly enough wants to take you down, or a group of them, or a state's attorney, or you pick whichever tax-feeding scumbag we're talking about here, can then determine, all right, I want this person taken down. Now, that's not rule of law anymore. When they say, like, okay, they're not keeping their grass the right length, or they've got they're growing vegetables in their front yard, or they're using
the fiends.
Whatever it might be, at some point or another, everybody who's listening to me has probably committed a felony in the last 5 years. Yeah. Everybody who's here, they may not know it. They may be sitting there. There's a cop sitting in his police car right now. It's like, what? What? I haven't committed a felony. Yes, sir,
yeah,
you have. And I'm not saying that. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch is saying it. I'm just a talk show host who believes in less government, who, over the course of 15 years, has come to the inexorable conclusion that we live in a police state. I did not believe this when we started. Really? I do believe it now. I didn't get on the show because I had an axe to grind about these things. I was convinced over time by stories and by listeners calling in and you know, this and that, and it just at some point or another, you just have to throw up your hands and say, yep, this system's broken.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you don't think we live in a police state.
Well, I mean, what are we calling a police state?
I'll give you 3 examples right now.
Okay.
They're taking naked pictures of your wife at the airport. They're groping your children at the airport. They have roving and stationary checkpoints where they check people for their papers inside the United States. Do you need anything else?
No.
All right.
I was just curious what you were characterizing as a police state.
I don't know what else to tell you. They're taking naked pictures of your wife at the airport, and you don't do anything about it. That's because you are not a free person. You are a serf.
Yeah, you are intimidated by the guns that they would use against you if you attempted to do something about it. That would definitely be a hallmark of fascism in the police state.
You can't put chains on a free man. But if you scare him and he begs for the chains, he'll never do anything about it. And that's what's happened.
Absolutely.
And it's understood by, at the very least, Neil Gorsuch.
I mean, a lot of these people, they're able to operate under the delusion that we're not in a police state because the cops generally leave them alone. But what do you expect? It's a numbers game. They can't go after everybody. But once you get pulled over out in the middle of nowhere at 3 o'clock in the morning, and suddenly you've got 5 cop cars around you, they're searching you for drugs because they said their canine found some, even though you know there's none in there. And then you end up getting arrested and you get 5 charges stacked on you, like resisting arrest and all sorts of nonsense. Then you know you're at their mercy. And you're perpetually at their mercy. The problem is that a lot of Americans simply persist in a state of denial.
Well, they probably aren't out at 3 o'clock in the morning. One.
That as well.
The vast majority of them aren't. I've been pulled over going to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, and they ask you where are you coming from? Home? Where are you going? Work? They leave you alone.
No, they don't.
Well, they do. They did me. But if I was coming home,
I say I don't have to tell you anything, and then they stop leaving me alone.
I've been pulled over in uniforms. They watch me drive out the parking lot. I smell like food. Where are you coming from? I mean, I can't help you. Like, that's not what I told them.
Right. Well,
I can't help you.
You have made the contention that law enforcement in Louisiana has somehow stepped down from the rest of the South.
Well, I said from New Hampshire. I don't know what I haven't.
855-450-FREE as in.
Are you concerned that liberty, free market economics, and the values that made America great are no longer taught in schools? Well, so am I. So I got my son the Tuttle Twins children's book series.
My name is Jack, and I'm 11 years old, and I just started the Tuttle Twins. So far, I have learned that some people can use the government to ruin the economy and destroy people's businesses.
Give all the young people in your life a chance at reason and clear thought, because they're not going to get it at school. There are 9 books in the series, and each one teaches a set of ideas that children aren't getting elsewhere. Go to TuttleTwins.com and use coupon code FTL to get 40% off. Again, that's TuttleTwins.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Take control of the airways. Tell us whatever is on your mind. 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And although we've been talking about Neil Gorsuch and his surprising statement about how governments tend to abuse their authority, let's go to the phones. We got Sarah calling in from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I wanted to to ask you guys, do you think the state of Texas, do you think two different drivers will run over the same pedestrians like 2 times, like a bag of laundry, like they do here in Albuquerque?
Is this like one of those math problems, word problems? If 2 cars run over the same pedestrian, one's traveling 50 miles an hour, the other traveling 40 miles an hour.
How many giblets do you get?
Wow. What happens to the bag of laundry?
I mean, they run them over like 2 times like a bag of dirty laundry here in Albuquerque.
I haven't studied Texas traffic that hard.
I have no idea why you're asking me this.
But, I brought this up because they're going to do away with red light cameras. The governor...
No, Sarah thinks that despite all the evidence that you might present her, Sarah believes that red light cameras solve problems.
They cause people to slam on their brakes in the middle of intersections.
What Sarah really wants is any impediment to using a motor vehicle at all. She wants everybody to tootle around walking, except for her, that she can ride on a city bus.
Is that accurate, Sarah?
I'm not hearing no. That's disturbing.
Yeah. Modern society can screech to a halt. She doesn't care.
Well, modern society can take the bus.
Modern society can come screeching out of the sky as an airplane and land on her apartment at any time. She doesn't worry about that.
Well, the thing about it is that I'm bringing this up because, in the state of Texas, they could remove all of the red light cameras. That's okay, and they're going to do it in time. But they have to finish out their contracts. If they still have like a 3-year or 1 year with the company,
some municipalities,
they still got to finish out the contract.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is that in the state of Texas, do you think they would dare just run over a pedestrian 2 times just because they felt like
Why
it?
do you think that the traffic, that the cars, the drivers in New Mexico are so much worse than the rest of the country?
Am I understanding correctly that your primary contention is that if they take out these cameras, then drivers will just run over pedestrians because they're no longer on video?
No, the state of Texas, they will prosecute you as a criminal offense. They will put them in jail for like 15, 20 years. They
for
know
what?
Better. They could, I want to say, they could afford to remove all of the red light cameras, but they will enforce the law. The police will enforce the law.
Is it not illegal to run over people in New Mexico? I mean, I haven't studied New Mexico law, but I would imagine that it is.
Well, the thing is, they never get prosecuted. So even if the pedestrian had the right of way and the walk signal, and then the first one runs them over, the second one runs them, I never hear anybody going to jail.
How do you know? Like, how do you know they never get prosecuted? Do you check up on this?
Well, I keep hearing people do it. You know what I mean? They just life of a pedestrian is not worth much here.
Well, Sarah, thank you for the call. I have a really hard time imagining that there is some driver out there who runs over somebody, and the next person who comes through goes, oh, look, there's a human body-shaped speed bump. I'm just going to plow over them, too. It's
not unlikely that it has happened. I mean, everything has happened under the sun.
Sure.
But, Sarah is fixated
on traffic.
On this.
Yes.
And I would recommend not taking her terribly seriously in this particular area.
I mean, it's weird because it's like you would think that somebody who has places to be at a certain time would be the one worried about traffic, right? Like if I just have nowhere to be, I don't have to be on the roads at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever rush hour traffic is.
Yeah, but see, she has nowhere to be, so she's able to just pick this issue and just fixate on it relentlessly.
You heard she did not deny wanting to see every single combustion engine on the planet spiked and thrown into a junkyard, melted down for scrap.
Yeah, because she doesn't have a job to get to, and she doesn't care that the people who do have a job to get to at a certain time have to actually get there.
She's willing to give up the convenience of the bus in order that you can't have a car.
Well, she doesn't need it because she doesn't have anywhere to be. She doesn't have a job, and she doesn't have any other like replacement for a job. Like it's not like, oh, I'm rich so I do volunteer work or I raise kids. Is that like she has nothing to do. So if it takes you 6 hours to get to the grocery store, it doesn't matter.
You got all day.
I can't imagine, though, being so bored, because that's ultimately what it is, that she's willing to walk 6 miles or 6 hours to a grocery store. I've done my fair share of walking, especially
I wasn't
talking
about walking. I was talking about like if the buses are delayed that much. But whatever the case may be.
I mean, is that her hypothetical perfect world is no private transportation and only public?
I can only presume what she thinks because like she's all about the incremental steps. So let's put up the red light cameras. Even if we find out that cars have more accidents at red light cameras, we'll just ignore this. It's a fact. We'll just ignore it. I mean, she ignores fact after fact after fact.
The fact that states are willing to take down a device that costs them very little and raises revenue because traffic accidents increase so much
is that why they get pulled down?
I'm sure they never state that, but they do pull them down.
Right.
What would be any other reason?
Well, see, I didn't even know a reason other than the privacy issue and the right to confront one's accuser and all of that, and being unable to do that if it's a camera accusing you. For all you know, the device malfunctioned, and it would be on them to prove that it didn't.
I'd be willing to bet 98% of people just pay the ticket, and they don't bother going to court and trying to get to confront their accuser.
Sure, but that's why we have the boots so thoroughly on our necks. That's why we have Neil Gorsuch saying that just about everyone can be arrested for anything because they just pay the fine. They just bow to the state. They don't resist.
The immediate point of Gorsuch's argument is to criticize the idea that having probable cause for an arrest should automatically invalidate a claim that the arrest violated the First Amendment because it was being used as a tool to punish dissenting speech. Can you help me with that?
I wasn't able to parse it.
That sentence was too much for me. I'm going to read it one more time, ladies. Let's rub a few brain cells together and help me out. The immediate point of Gorsuch's argument is to criticize the idea that having probable cause for an arrest should automatically invalidate a claim that the arrest violated the First Amendment because it was being used as a tool to punish dissenting speech.
Nope, I still didn't get it.
Yeah,
Melanie?
So this is the ulterior motive arrest. So basically, I'm arresting you for real because of what you're saying and I don't like it.
Okay.
But I did, in fact, have probable cause to arrest you for spraying Lysol 6 inches away from an object instead of 7 like it says on the bottle or whatever the numbers are.
Yep. The vast modern expansion of both criminal and civil liability poses a more general threat to the rule of law. More case law here. Lavrentiy Beria, the infamous head of the Soviet secret police under Joseph Stalin, supposedly once said, I guess this is a quote actually, "Show me the man, I'll show you the crime." In the Soviet Union, the regime could always find some crime to pin on anyone it chose to target. As a general rule, it would be silly to equate the modern United States with a mass-murdering totalitarian state. But
Why?
in this one respect, the two regimes are more similar than we would like them to be. Because in the United States, they don't murder you, they throw you in prison, which is, frankly, more costly and better for the state because, well, they have to pay, they have to tax in order to keep you in this place. And nobody...
That's true, but if you refuse to be kidnapped, they will kill you.
Oh, that much is true.
Yeah, but they would rather kidnap you.
But Americans are a load of mouth-breathing myrmidons. So as soon as somebody...
Mouth-breathing what?
Myrmidons. You can look that up at the break.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah, I owe you a reference, too. What I mean is that once somebody's convicted, they'll just go ahead and believe anything bad about them. You know, that's it. They're convicted. They're gone. They've disappeared down the memory hole.
I don't dispute that at all. 855-450-3733. Tell us what's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Give us a call. Tell us whatever is on your mind. 855-450-FREE as in Free Talk Live. 855-450-3733. With you tonight, it's Aria.
Melanie.
And Mark.
And Mark, you look like you had something that you wanted to share with us.
I do. I want to share Cryptocurrency Wire here. If you're looking to reach the cryptocurrency market, or perhaps you want to spread mass awareness of your crypto technology, either way, you need a communications company that specializes in the field. Leveraging 35-plus different brands, part of the Investor Brand Network, and more than 5,000 downstream distribution partners, Cryptocurrency Wire combines the power of specialization with mass market reach. With their help, you can start connecting with crypto-friendly journalists and more than 1.6 million followers. Their commitment is to get the most eyes possible in your big news while it's fresh, domestic or international. They can reach 56 different countries and also provide translation services. If your company is even if your company is as important and a relevant newsmaker, you need someone that specializes in the field to get your message heard. CryptocurrencyWire.com. We've used them here on Free Talk Live, and we got some success with it. We got some stories. Some people wrote some stories about us. CryptocurrencyWire.com.
Very cool. Now, we've been talking about Neil Gorsuch. It's so hard for me not to call him Gorsuch. I mean, simply because that is how I've always pronounced it. I thought that's what it was. He does suck, but that's not why. And his dissenting opinion on the Supreme Court that the state too often can have its enforcers use ulterior motives to justify an arrest. Like, I'm dealing with a state trooper here locally who doesn't seem to have much for me, and of course he does have an excuse to justify it. The question I have is whether or not there's actually an ulterior motive, and it seems like there is. And what Neil Gorsuch is saying is that this is all too possible when we have it set up so that just about every citizen can be arrested for anything.
Yeah, there's not tons, but there's a substantial amount of federal Supreme Court case law that deals with ulterior motive arrests. And currently the law is, and historically everything I've ever read about it is that, yeah, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't prove that it was nefarious in the first place, right, or personally motivated.
And it would be really weird from a sustaining the state standpoint if they ruled the other way. Like, because then they would have to say, well, yes, you broke the law, but that's not what matters here. And that's a really weird position for them to take and also save face. And so they're not going to do it.
Right. And when if you think about this, as the listener here, if you think about it, I mean, do you think that the police would rather have more options to arrest somebody or fewer? Do you think the prosecutors would rather have more options or fewer when it comes to prosecution? Do you think that defense attorneys would rather have more cases or fewer when it comes to defense? I mean, do you think judges don't you think judges benefit from more cases coming in front of them, more opportunity to hire more judges, more opportunity to be a chief judge? Yep. Everybody here benefits except you. Most Americans going on here, most Americans, of course, never face punishment for their law breaking. And I just made the statement that I believe that everybody listening to me has probably committed a felony in the last 10 years.
I don't know about felony, but they've certainly broken some statute, some regulation.
Well, a felony is just anything over, on a federal level, it's anything over a year. States can define it differently if they want to. Most states define it about the same way. So that's so big.
So the only difference is how much time you might spend in jail?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the difference between a misdemeanor and
now,
felony.
some states pretty much adopt that, but they'll deviate from it a little bit. It's like, okay, well, that's the general rule, but then we have these 3 laws that we deviate from that for no reason.
I mean, that's interesting because we've created this entire mythology around the felon, where you become almost unhireable if you have a felon in your history, but ultimately there's no real difference.
Yeah. And it's punishable by. So if a sentence ranges from, if you have one of these broad crimes where the sentence ranges from a $50 fine to 2 years in jail, that's a felony, even if you get a $20 fine.
Wow. I think that writing a bad check is a felony. But I'm not an attorney. I don't pay that much attention to these things. But lots of things are felonies. People don't have any idea. I'd be willing to bet that having expired oxycodone in your medicine cabinet, and there's a lot of people in America who have that, is probably a felony that you could be convicted on.
It is in Louisiana because anything other than weed is a felony, no matter what the amount or intent is.
If you, even if, and I know people do this, and I'm sure this is a felony, handing out that oxycodone to a family member who's in pain.
Oh, yeah, the distribution of narcotics or narcotics or opium is definitely a felony.
Right. So, I mean, when you're talking about read the book, 3 felonies a day, and then maybe you'll get some idea of some of these ludicrous ways that people become felons. Anyway, the average American never faces punishment for their law breaking, but it's true only because the authorities lack the resources to pursue most violators and routinely exercise discretion in determining which ones are worth the effort. In this way, the rule of law is largely supplanted by the rule of chance and the rule of executive discretion. Inevitably, political ideology and partisanship have major impact on the latter. For example, federal law enforcement priorities are very different under Trump than they were under Obama. Also, let's just take into consideration human beings. If you have I think this is just a fair statement. If you have a young black male that you think has committed a crime as a police officer, or and remember, everybody's committed a crime. We're establishing this right now. Or there's an old couple wandering by. Who are you going to chase after?
Yeah, I mean, this is allowing police officers to make these sorts of judgment calls is how you end up with bias and discrimination being built into the system, because they will have their own personal criteria about which people to pull over, which ones to ignore. Like if a cop sees 2 people speeding, one is black and one is white, if they do happen to be a racist, who are they going to be ticketing?
I think there's also just sort of natural tendencies to think things. I was pulled over a couple of months ago for running a red light. I straight up ran a red light. I just didn't even think about it. I just went right through it, and it was a left-hand turn, and the cop was right there. I knew the cop was there. I wasn't running a red light in my mind. I was just turning, and it was completely safe. Everything was fine. But he's like, I had to do a double take. I had no idea I had no idea what was going on. I had to look again. And you ran that red light. I'm like, really? And so, all he did was look in. Of course, he sees the fireman's helmet on the seat, and
always a nice little.
It's a perk.
Yeah.
Takes my license back, runs it, says there's nothing on it. Comes back and says, have a nice day. I asked him a couple of questions about what he saw when he pulled up my license, because I'm just curious. It's like, nothing. There's nothing there.
Interesting.
So, he could have gone through my car and ripped it apart looking for something that was there that was illegal.
Well, could he have legally done that?
No, because there's not going to be any evidence of running a red light in your car.
No, but he... Okay, so
he might think, oh, this person was so high they zoned out and ran a red light. What if that was his justification?
Well, he would have to have probable cause that you were high, which the fact you ran a red light is not going to cut it.
Well, he could say my eyes look dilated to him.
Well, yeah, he could sit there and falsify a ticket and be like, he smelled like weed, his eyes were red, he had slurred speech, I smell alcohol. And if he writes all that down, then yeah, he can then search the car. But
and then he needs or he could just do the shtick of, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step out now. I'm going to have to ask you to let me search your car. So I can search your car. I'm going to have to ask you to step out so I can search your car.
Yeah, they like that one.
Yeah, that's a great one. And, he didn't do anything like that because why? Well, he's dealing with a firefighter. He's dealing with a middle-aged guy who's just, everybody's run a light at some point or another. Yeah. So, what's the problem?
So what advice would you have for people who have that experience? The cop's like, I need you to step out of your car so I can search it.
So if you're talking to a cop, you need to be very... I don't know if there's even a word for this in English. Very, obnoxiously, asininely literal.
Okay.
So, yeah, the cop needs to,
What is a response that doesn't get you arrested and doesn't get you shot?
That you don't... If he's telling you to get out, you need to get out. But if he's saying, I need to ask you, I need to search, I need you to let me... And just tell them that you don't consent to that.
Right.
And then they'll either do it anyway... Or now they explicitly don't have consent.
Are you asking me, or are you giving me an order? And if they say they're asking you, then, I kindly decline.
Okay. Good advice. I've always wondered the answers to those questions. Of course, I'm inclined to always state that I do not consent to any encounter with law enforcement. But it's always good to know that, the difference between an order and a suggestion is a big deal. 855-450-3733. Again, that's 855-450-FREE as in freedom. Tell us what's on your mind.
Would you like to hang out with Penn Jillette? He's keynoting Freedom Fest this year. I, for one, am thrilled. Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented gathering in the world. They take a Big Ten approach with libertarians, conservatives, liberals, anarchists, capitalists, and just open-minded people mingling together to hear real debates, share real solutions, and converse freely. This year's theme is the Wild West, a time of liberty and opportunity, or a time of anarchy and violence. Maybe both. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get your tickets now. freedomfest.com/FTL. Not convinced yet? Hey, I understand. It's a high-end event. Even with coupon code FTL50. Sure, you're likely to receive investment advice that'll make that sum seem paltry, but I have something special for you. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and you'll get the 5 best speeches from last year for free. Call it a test drive. Do yourself a favor and go to freedomfest.com/FTL. freedomfest.com/FTL. Use coupon code FTL50 for a discount.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Take control of the airways. Tell us about whatever is on your mind. 855-450-FREE as in freedom. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And Mark, you have anything on your mind you'd like to share with us before we dive headlong into
Let's dive.
Housewives? Well, Melanie, you brought in a story that's really fascinating, arguing that it should be illegal to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, so this is from Australia, dailytelegraph.com.au. So we're the only ones that get just .com. I guess everybody else has to specify what part of the internet they're from on the globe. But, and I don't, so because it's from Australia, I don't know how fringe this is or how mainstream this is. But the one thing I learned from sociology class that I had to take was that you should never ignore people just because they're fringe at the moment, because maybe one day they won't be. So, that was...
So
I don't know. So I don't know how serious this is at the moment, but I'm not going to ignore it as non-serious, even if it is fringe. I haven't asked people from Australia how serious this is.
Well, if you're from Australia and you know how serious this is, don't hesitate to give us a call, 855-450-3733. So let's go to the story.
Yeah. So this is a woman named Sarah, and she has a last name I can't pronounce. It looks kind of French.
It does.
I'm not going to try to pronounce it. I'm just going to mess it up.
It's just going to offend the French people.
So she says...
They're offended by everything.
It should be...
She's eating surrender monkeys.
I might translate the dialect because it's easier to read, but she says it should be illegal to be a stay-at-home mom.
I would disagree.
Yeah, well,
yeah. Well, I think we would.
I'm going to need to hear more from Sarah to come up with an opinion that to go along with her opinion. But yeah, let's hear it.
There's one issue guaranteed to trigger hysteria across the nation every time it comes up in the news, and it has nothing to do with Pauline Hanson, international terrorism, or Married at First Sight. I don't know what most of those things are.
I don't know what any of those things are.
Well, international terrorism.
Okay, fair point. I know what the state says it is.
But you also know what it actually is.
Right. Well, it's generally the state.
What's the issue?
Stay-at-home moms, evidently, is triggering hysteria in Australians.
I can't believe this is... Well, it must be pretty serious if it comes up in the news, because there's no one... It's not coming up in the news in the United States where they say stay-at-home moms are what? They're what? Bad? How?
Keeping the economy afloat with their purchases of cardigan sweaters?
The news is not saying... They're bringing up the topic of stay-at-home moms, but the news is not saying that stay-at-home moms should be illegal. She is.
I see. Go ahead.
It's a topic of stay-at-home moms, more specifically the release of any data or analysis that dares recommend Australia women should get out of the living room, kitchen, nursery, and back into the workforce.
This triggers hysteria in people?
That's what she says.
Yeah, I would imagine that it does. If you go around starting to tell families that they cannot have one parent stay at home, then you have really hit a bee's nest.
Wow. I mean, a recommendation or a suggestion would be very lightweight to trigger something like hysteria.
I always kind of suspected that this was the ultimate goal of extended maternity leave.
Is the creation of stay-at-home moms?
Is the not necessarily outright criminalization, but at least heavily discouragement of stay-at-home parents.
By giving them leave to stay at home?
Well, they're telling them how long they can
because
stay.
then you're saying, well, there's no reason for you to have to stay at home because, look, we're just giving you 2 years, and by then they should be done, and then you can send the kid to us and go back to work.
Right. So
I always suspected that was the ultimate goal.
Off to the indoctrination center with your children, and then you can get back to work and start earning taxes for us.
So it's, theoretically some part of these state machinations to just sort of take control of the population and to destroy the family.
Yeah. And Australia was one of these countries that does have, I don't know what it is in Australia, but it ranges from like a year to like 18 months to 2 years in a lot of Europe, Australia, places like that.
And the liberals here in the United States, they just eat this stuff up because it's like, oh, all I have to do to not have to work for 2 years is have a baby? Well, we were going to do that anyway. That's 2 years off. And it all comes down to just a hate for the word work. And
sure.
Look, I mean, if you hate your job, you hate your job. I get it. I've had lots of jobs I hate, but I don't hate my job. Thanks. That doesn't mean that I have to pay to keep you afloat. So
yeah, I wouldn't expect to be paid after not showing up to work for 2 years, and I wouldn't even expect my position to be there anymore after 2 years. That is insane. Or 18 months.
That is a very long leave of absence.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. I mean, what the company, it would seem, would probably need to fill that role. Otherwise, the job isn't really necessary in the first place and could be eliminated.
Right.
So that they just hire somebody and say, okay, well, you're hired, but you need to know there's a sword of Damocles over your head, and we're going to fire you as soon as this other person comes back.
A lot of these countries hire a lot of temps, and I would imagine if you are a company in a place where you know this is going to happen regularly, you might build in some redundancy, which means everyone's getting paid less so that certain people can have 2-year paid vacations.
So it's just problematic all the way around. So why are people in Australia being recommended to go back to work?
What's this lady's premise? Am I stealing from the state by refusing to go back to work? Is that the idea?
Well, you're stealing from society in general.
Yeah, well,
in the economy and all kinds of other.
Usually they use the term civil society. It's not civil to take people's money because they worked for. So this lady doesn't know anything about civility anyway. Would be my premise. She is a top-down authoritarian. She's a little Hitler in sensible shoes that wishes to tell everybody how they've got to live, and she wants your kids indoctrinated. She wants you indoctrinated. I don't want anything to do with her. That's my guess.
The main thrust of her argument does seem to be that there are large losses to the economy when women stay at home. Or work short part-time hours.
Because leftists don't understand supply and demand, and that if you double the supply of labor, prices will go down for labor.
Yeah, it cuts everyone's wages.
Not to mention the costs of people coming in and going out of industry all the time, which is also expensive.
The economy is here to serve us, not the other way around. The economy in horseshoes has diminished over the last 200 years. But we don't get rid of automobiles as a result. And, the idea the economy somehow takes a hit because moms are staying home with their families. The economy is there to serve moms and their families.
Large corporations take a hit because now they have a more limited work pool to pull from, and they have to pay people more.
Yeah, but screw them. This is a good thing for the consumer, for the employee. Having fewer people applying for more jobs is good for the employees.
Right. The basic organizational model for human beings is not corporations. It's human beings. It's families. And that's what the economy is there to serve, not for the corporations. This lady's just, she's just one of these lockstep advocates for corporations. She'd probably say the opposite, but that's what she is.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, she's essentially saying that the people of Australia, that women, men, their families are subservient to businesses and corporations.
Yeah, so you should hand over so you should basically be a free surrogate mother for the state, like incubate a baby and then hand it over so that corporations can have cheaper labor.
And on top of that, then they can properly indoctrinate the child. I've had leftists tell me that they think that people who homeschool their kids are Unabombers, the terminology that they used.
Some of them may be. But
these stats for Unabombers do not in any way line up with the stats for, and not just correlation-wise, but there's nowhere near as many Unabombers as there are homeschooling parents. So there's that.
The Unabomber probably went, I'd be willing to bet the Unabomber went to government school.
I would be inclined to agree.
As a matter of fact, I'd be willing to go a step further. I'd be willing to say that if we go through prisons, generally, we will find that that the government schools are super represented. Like even a larger percentage of the population in prison is a government school attendee, because I doubt they're graduates, than the average person in population. So there you go. The government just wants to turn out more. It just wants to corrupt more people and turn them into criminals and put them in prison.
That is what it does best. 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. Tell us whatever is on your mind. 855-450-3733. 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark. Bitcoin, it's down. It's up. It's back down again. Who knows what's going on with the roller coaster of cryptocurrency? Well, there's some people with some insight at Bitcoin.com. They're your premier source for everything that's related to cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin Cash specifically. Check out Bitcoin.com. They can help you get a wallet for your cryptocurrency, to buy Bitcoin Cash to show you where you can spend your cryptocurrency. Places like save at purse.com. You can stay up to date with the latest news or engage with the community on their forums. Learn more at Bitcoin.com. Also, I think it's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow a really cool thing is happening.
Local.bitcoin.com. They launch on June 4th, and that is tomorrow. And that means that you can buy, sell, trade cryptocurrencies with people in your community privately. And that's going to be pretty cool. So local.bitcoin.com.
Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what I said?
I don't know exactly what you said.
Bitcoin Cash. This is specifically for Bitcoin Cash, which, frankly, in my opinion, is more like Bitcoin than what they BTC, what they're calling Bitcoin these days, which has basically become sort of an online version of, digital gold.
I would absolutely agree. Philosophically, Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. I'm hesitant to say that because of all of the
they get really
baggage associated with it. But, Bitcoin Cash is definitely closer to the actual Bitcoin white paper than what we call Bitcoin.
I hear there's other things that are closer to the original white paper now, but
are they forks of the initial blockchain, or are they new cryptocurrencies that are trying to relive that vision, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't, to me, the ladies and gentlemen, the 2019 Model T Ford is not a selling point, but Bitcoin Cash having low transaction fees, tremendous selling point.
Honestly, looking at the charts here, it looks like the only thing not bombing is that crap known as Bitcoin SV. And it seems to be doing pretty well.
Which is probably closer to the original Bitcoin than anything at this point.
But if you start off low enough, it's kind of difficult to bomb.
Yes.
I guess, but it's still nice to see that at least one thing is clearly trending up while the others are kind of, fluctuating rather drastically. Bitcoin is down almost 9%.
I've eliminated Bitcoin SV from my favorites chart. I don't even look at it. To me, it is dead. It is dead to me.
Well, the $212 value would disagree. But we've been talking before we got into the awesome subject. And again, I just cannot wait for local.bitcoin.com to launch. That's going to be epic. We've been talking about this woman in Australia. Well, I don't want to assume this person's gender. This person in Australia who is arguing that being a stay-at-home mom should be illegal because it's bad for the economy.
Yes. So She said, so the outcry has been predictable in the wake of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development's recent report, which has the audacity to suggest that stay-at-home moms would be better off putting their skills to use in paid employment. So either this is an opinion column, in which case it doesn't matter what they think.
I think it's an opinion piece.
Well, what I'm reading is, but this office that she just quoted.
Okay.
Or they actually do economic analysis, which shouldn't be telling you what you would be better off doing. It should just be telling you what will happen if you do X and what will happen if you do Y.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all if a government agency were to say, it wouldn't surprise me in the least if they were to say, we would all be better off if all the stay-at-home moms in America would get back out and do what they are supposed to do in the economy, send their kids to school. That's what school's for. It's more efficient. Yeah, I mean, our schools are dwindling or whatever rattling claptrap they say, because sure, it would be better for the government and it would be better for the economy if you made the decision to do everything as efficiently as possible and the state gets to fund its efficiencies through your tax dollars. Sure.
Well, I don't know if I would even say it would be more efficient for the economy, because the economy is not like this one entity. It's an aggregate of, in the way they deal with it at a government level, it's an aggregate of numbers. Maybe GDP would be better. Maybe total incomes would be better.
Well, it's certainly more productive.
Person or not would be better.
It's certainly
not necessarily, because if I'm spending more money not staying at home than I am to just stay at home.
But see, that's consumption, not production.
No,
you're literally not producing by staying at home.
Right, but if I'm spending more money on uniforms and gas and daycare and everything else, that's not more productive for me. It might be more productive for the people who sell office clothes.
It is literally more productive, though. In literal terms, that is the definition of being productive.
But it's negative production.
I'm not sure that when you start figuring everything in, the lunches that you make and the school uniforms, the mom's uniform, maybe the second car, all those things, that it's probably still pretty rare that a woman who puts in a 40-hour week still doesn't make more money at work.
It depends on how skilled you are. If you're a surgeon, that's obviously not the case. If you're a cashier, that can very easily be the case.
Well, see, I don't think the government's concerned that your kids are going to grow up to be criminals, so it really wants them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that it can turn them into criminals.
Well, to their mind, they're fixing them.
Like, I've sat down and run the numbers with some people, and there are people who come out negative because they're
I'm not
like
talking about profit
labor
versus loss here, or income versus expensive. I'm talking about consumption versus productivity. If you're just sitting at home watching TV, eating food, taking care of kids, whatever, I'm not saying stay-at-home moms are lazy or anything like that, but they are literally the definition of economically unproductive. They are not producing anything. They are simply consuming. So if they do go out there and they go to work, regardless of what they're doing, they are ultimately producing something.
They're producing something, but then they're consuming more than they're producing if they go to work. In a lot of cases, not in all cases.
Well, they want us to consume.
But they're going to be consuming either way. It's just a matter of what they're consuming and what they're not. If they're a stay-at-home mom, their income is zero, so it's not going to be hard for their expenses to outweigh their income. So even if they do go to a job and they have an income of, say, to keep it simple, $100, and their expenses are $110, the negative is still only $10 versus if they were a stay-at-home mom and it was negative $110.
But if you look at it as an economic unit, or even if you don't, so like, is your light bill and your rent and everything else really going up that much by your wife staying at home? It probably shouldn't be. If the economic unit of the family is making $60,000 a year and has expenses of $20,000, and now the woman goes to work, and so now they have income of $70,000 a year and expenses of $40,000 or $45,000 or $50,000. That doesn't make sense.
I wouldn't make this argument because I'd be willing to pay whatever my wife's paycheck is to have better kids. And that's what I'm looking for, is a better family unit. And having my wife stay at home is going to do that. That's what she wants. That's what I want. Then that's what should happen. The idea that we're going to parse this down to numbers Screw all these people and their numbers, as far as I'm concerned.
855-450-3733.
Free Talk Live has found that though U.S. financial institutions are prohibited from doing business with foreign gambling websites, it's not illegal for U.S.-based internet users to gamble on those sites. People have been using VPNs or virtual private networks to connect to sites like games.bitcoin.com and play games with Bitcoin Cash. Games.bitcoin.com features poker, blackjack, roulette, craps, keno, slots, and dice. You can conduct your own investigation at games.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. Tell us whatever is on your mind. 855-450-FREE as in freedom. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark. You don't have to have listened to Free Talk Live for too long, especially LRN.FM, where we put all kinds of liberty-oriented content. And I've had to know that I'm a little obsessive about My Magic Mud. I've had ads there for a long time, and I confess that I drink about a pot of coffee a day. Now, my coffee is decaffeinated. I understand the rest of the world doesn't think that's real coffee, but it stains just like the coffee. And
fair point.
My Magic Mud is awesome for removing stains from your teeth. If you're a smoker, you drink coffee, there's a bunch of things that stain your teeth. Just real life. Eating blackberries, stain your teeth. But as a black tooth powder made of charcoalized coconut shells and bentonite clay, it removes stains like you wouldn't believe. When Jessica Armand, the lady who created this stuff, first gave me a bottle, she explained to me how to use it. On the phone, I had the bottle. I'm like, can you tell me again how to use this? And use it for 4 days, and then every 3 or 4 days after that. And I could tell after the first application on the first day, wow, there's some spots that rub that color right off. By 4 days, everything was like my teeth should look. And it's really, really impressive. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth. I don't need that news. I know it's true. Also, I'm 100% convinced that it removes tartar better than regular toothpaste, because I use regular toothpaste, and then every 3 or 4 days I'm sort of feeling things feel a little different. I use the My Magic Mud and my mouth feels so much cleaner. It's available at most major health food stores, Sprouts, CVS, Natural Grocers, and Walmart's Natural Beauty aisle. But if you go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20, you get 20% off, and that's a real nice deal. mymagicmud.com, coupon code FTL20. If you don't listen to anything else I say here on the radio, if you think I'm just a babbling lunatic,
well, I do, but I still listen to you.
Listen to this, mymagicmud.com, and use coupon code FTL20 to save 20%. I think you should get it however you get it, but I'd like to see you save 20% at mymagicmud.com.
Very cool. I like the idea of it. I think it was you who mentioned at one point, it doesn't sound like something that you would want in your mouth.
No, it doesn't.
Based on the ingredients, but it actually works, and that's shocking. Let's go to the phones. We got Kirby calling from Indiana. Kirby, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I know this is off topic, but I just have to ask, are you guys or have you seen the what I call a phenomenon now where people that are just out taking pictures or filming, the fascists with badges immediately roll up and want ID? What is going on with that?
No, I thought this has sort of gone out of style. This used to be like right after 9/11, you'd find the police really hated people taking pictures. But is this happening again?
Yeah, but I consider this to be like the norm.
I just witnessed it. I'm at work. I work in downtown Indianapolis. 3 young white guys out here, obviously not terrorists. And sure enough, as soon as they got started taking pictures, here comes IMPD with their swastikas and asking for papers. It's ridiculous. And I mean, I'm 58 years old and black, and I feel like if they'll do that to a 20-something white guy, I might not need to come out of the house and take a picture of anything.
I've seen that, like they don't like, for whatever reason, people taking Instagram photos out in public. And I don't really understand why that is. Maybe it's because Instagram's for young people and it's always okay to bother young people. But that would be the only thing I can think of on this. I'll take your word for it. You're out there in the public more than I am, Kirby.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to live out here with these. As my grandmother said, it takes all kinds to make a world. I just ain't figured out why we got to have so many kinds.
But I don't know that that's what people were talking about when they said all kinds. I don't think they necessarily meant that. I mean, I don't want to speak for your grandmother, but that kind's when we can do it out.
We could do it without hassling people over taking pictures.
So I've not encountered this. It's not people taking pictures of them that gets them riled up. It's just people being out and about and taking pictures at all causes the cops to show up.
Yeah, because these guys were just taking pictures of the hotel and the mall.
Oh, taking pictures. I thought you were talking about taking pictures of the cops. Okay, I've never heard of that.
And the cops just pull it up and were like, we need to see your identification.
Yeah. It used to be.
He pulled up, said, what are you guys doing? They were like, oh, we're just taking some pictures. He's like, well, it looks suspicious. You got ID?
I'm not driving the camera, officer.
When did taking pictures become a suspicious activity?
Yeah, well, they used to go after people for being at like train stations and airports and taking pictures of planes and things like that because they're like, transportation, that's dangerous. And I know that they've gone after people for, taking pictures of edifices, in this case, buildings, that kind of thing. There was an article locally where, I don't know anything about songs, but something like Old Town Road is a new song, and people are now taking Instagram videos on Old Town Road here in southwestern New Hampshire. And I guess there's like 5 people who live on Old Town Road, and most of them are grumpy. So somebody will come
Shocking.
out, right? Somebody will come out with a horse, and take some videos of them. I don't know, doing a cover of Old Town Road or whatever, and people are clicking all over the nation looking up Old Town Road. I may not even have the name of the song right, but that was the police department put out some kind of press release saying, "Hey, don't do too many videos at Old Town Road or something dumb and pointless." It's a town road. You can't keep people off of it. You can't even keep people and horses off of it.
I'm not sure what the laws are in Indiana, but I know at least in New Hampshire, and I would assume this is true in most cases, if you're just out on the streets and a cop approaches you and asks you for identification, you don't have to comply. Of course, this isn't to say you won't end up choked. Yeah, this.
You do?
You do in Indiana, yeah. They call it failure to identify. The only exemption to that is if you're the passenger in an automobile. Or, like, say they walk up to you and somebody M-wags you, man, with a gun. If they come up and say, hey, I need to see your permit, you don't have to show it to them, because our Supreme Court said that's the same as stopping every car you see to make sure the driver has a valid license.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there are states that have, self-identify laws where you have to identify. There's not usually laws that says you even have to have an ID, though. So
you just have to say who you are.
Yeah. Now,
name,
that
rank,
doesn't
and
mean,
serial number.
That doesn't
Prisoner.
mean what is or isn't going to happen if you refuse to show them an ID. But it's kind of difficult to have a law that says you have to show ID if there's not even a law that says you have to have an ID if you're not driving.
Kirby, thank you so much for the call. I'm not surprised to find that cops are just harassing random people. But I mean, certainly the whole I need to see your ID thing is rigged, because even if you're in a state like we are, where you don't actually have to provide any sort of identification, I don't think you even have to answer their questions or stop walking. That's not going to stop them from choking you to death out there on the streets.
So even if it's not illegal, yeah, they can definitely just kill you or arrest you for something else, or arrest you for something that's not even a crime, and
or as we were talking about,
book you with it.
You made them mad, so look, you also have a taillight out, or look, you have this other thing wrong. That's technically a violation, so let's arrest you for that.
If you have the camera out, it's probably a good idea to begin filming that interaction as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. I like
Officer, if you just hold still for just a second, I'm going to start videoing this so that we both have a record of what's going. Oh, you're filming it too? Excellent. Now we have two records.
Yeah. I like these citizen body cameras that you can buy at like Walmart, like $40 or $50. I don't know how effective they are.
I'm not going to walk around with something like that on.
Well, I imagine it would be kind of discreet.
Well, yeah, but you're a white guy that lives in Keene, New Hampshire. Not everybody is in that situation.
Did you just assume my ethnicity?
Yes.
Did you just tell me my gender?
No, because I was talking to Mark. Not everybody has that luxury, so in some people's case, it might make sense.
Yeah.
855-450-FREE, as in freedom, 855-450-3733. This is Free Talk Live. Take control of the airways. Tell us about anything and everything that happens to be on your mind. Well, not everything. That number is 855-450-3733, 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark. Want to thank the amplifiers, specifically Shannon McGully. Shannon is a silver amplifier, and you could be one too if you go to amp.freetalklive.com. There, you can sign up for our AMP program. We give you some perks. I can think of the AMP-only Facebook page, for one, which is kind of nice, where you can go talk to other amplifiers. And me, I get on there on a relatively regular basis on the Facebook page. But also what you're doing is you're helping us to spread the ideas of liberty and free speech, all kinds of different things that people aren't used to experiencing on the radio. So if you go to amp.freetalklive.com and support us, we'll appreciate it. It's amp.freetalklive.com. Thank you, Shannon.
Let's go back to the phones. We've actually got Bad Slave. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
What's on your mind?
I want to thank Mark right off the bat for his
you're welcome.
For his claim to why he's got his wife home with his son, with your son, and the importance of family. I think there's been an attack in my lifetime. Specifically, I was born in 52, so, I'm a boomer, and, I just watched everything just kind of march along from, what it was back when, and I'm not, some kind of a traditionalist that's all stuck in the past, but I mean, there were lots of good things about how America used to work that I think they're trying to throw out because they don't want individual power. They do not want regular people to be empowered themselves, to defend themselves, to
And you're saying all of this in defense of the stay-at-home mom?
Yes, I am. Absolutely. And,
so would you not say it's more empowering to be out there earning your own way in the world and striving for independence through...
Well, no, I don't. Well, I don't think it...
Well, how is it more independent to trade services to a corporation for resources than it is to trade services to your husband for resources?
Because the latter is prostitution.
Well, no.
Only if that's the only service you're trading.
Let me qualify this a little bit, please.
Sure.
First of all, I don't care whether it's mom or dad that stays home with the kid. I just think that one of the parents ought to be a stay-at-home parent, probably until the youngest child reaches puberty or close to it. And
I would agree that, while raising a child, it's important for at least one parent to be around that child. Not at all times, because you need to give people space and all that, but to at least be there physically in the same location.
Well, there's a lot more I have to say about this. And
By all means.
And so, anyway, what's been going on is, first of all, they came up with government schools. I call them Gov Indoc, because that's what we're doing here. We've got government indoctrinating children. And that's their plan.
I think that was probably the sort of number one reason why my wife and I, because, we had these conversations when we were dating. We decided, frankly, it was me talking. It's like, I don't really want to have kids. But if we did, I would want one of us to stay home and take care of them, and I have no interest in doing that. So you would have to decide, if we wanted to have kids, you'd be committing for the long haul to stay home, is basically what I told her. And because, I don't agree with everything Dr. Laura said, but she convinced me on this one issue, is that, look, it's either you raising your kid or it's the government raising your kid.
Absolutely.
And if you want to take the most inefficient organizational model known to man and have them educate your kid, expect bad results.
See, a lot of people have this idea that there's somehow some difference between educating a child and raising a child, and that they can turn their kid over to the state for 7 hours a day, every day for 18 years, and they will ultimately be the ones raising the child, and the state is just educating them. But that isn't the way it works at all. The state is actually raising people's children, no matter how we want to characterize it. They are teaching them these social values that the parents may not agree with, and worldviews that the parents may not endorse.
I mean, if the younger generation has a different set of values than the older generation, where did they get them? And the answer has to be school. I mean,
that's an interesting question. But I mean, how could they have propagated into the schools in the first place? What was the seed of the idea that caused it to take over the schools in the first place, instead of simply taking over the homes?
I think that the reason is that, first off, when you have schools, you have people who are not in search of a profit. So in the marketplace, where most people work, they're out there providing a service in exchange for money, and that service is quantifiable in many cases. Whereas when you have teachers, they are only the state could do this, but teachers have been turned into bureaucrats, and those bureaucrats are there trying to protect their jobs. Of course, I've had teachers say socialism isn't that bad. Well, of course a teacher doesn't believe that. They're working in socialized education.
Yeah, they're not going to bite the hand that feeds more often than not.
It's also the state gets to hand pick the teachers that work in its schools. So if it has a particular agenda to push, it can just go find the 20 people within driving distance of that school that have that agenda and hire them as teachers. So
often while doing no background check whatsoever, because these are public schools. And I've read stories about principals being registered sex offenders but still being hired.
I'm surprised at that.
To be principals at schools. Simply because, it's the state, and its mechanisms for doing anything are inefficient, flawed, and generally useless.
Well, nobody's going to suffer for it. Nobody's going to be punished for it. That's just how it is. And I think you need to have these conversations before you get married. If you aren't having these conversations before you have children, one wonders what you're talking about.
I mean, I think you need to have these conversations on the first or second date, but people call me insane for that.
I think that's probably too extreme.
I had a summary of my child rearing philosophy, strategy, whatever you want to call it, on my dating site.
Did you get a lot of dates?
I met Bob.
I think that's wonderful.
Then it was successful.
It was successful in so much as you met your husband.
Part of what
it probably weeded out the people who are not serious.
Which I don't want. Like, why would I want 50 different messages from people who disagree with me on things that are non-negotiable?
You're right.
Well, I mean, generally because people are using these dating sites not to find long-term romantic partners, but to find hookups. I mean, most of them are not generally about dating.
And this was on a now defunct anarchist dating site, but. Yeah, I mean, so I'm filtering out people who it's not going to work, so why would I talk to you? And then people who look at that and it's like, yeah, that sounds good. Then if I'm going to scare you off by telling you what I want, then I want to scare you off.
Yeah. You've changed my mind. I would have said that first you want to determine whether or not you can tolerate the person before you even hit them with the things that. But this screening method that you had is clearly a good idea.
I mean, and it worked. So I moved to New Hampshire in November of 2015.
I get the impression I sleep around a lot more than either of you.
I am sure. I am 100% positive of that.
Both of us are married.
Unless you've just been lying, which I'm assuming you're not.
I mean, these are not things that enter my head at any point in a relationship. Obviously, because I have no desire to have kids.
But that's not what you're looking for,
right?
So yeah, I moved to New Hampshire in November of 2015, and I met Bob on July 3rd, 2016. So it didn't. So
you're coming up on an anniversary.
Yeah, so it was pretty quick.
Early congratulations on that.
Thank you.
If I was just looking for a hookup partner, I would have a whole different set of rules too. But my wife really frowns upon hookups for me. So,
what a shame.
I can make fun of you and your hookups, but I really can't do them on my own.
This is Free Talk Live. Tell us whatever's on your mind. 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live. 855-450-3733. Or use the Discord calling lines, which you can find at discord.freetalklive.com. If you want clearer quality to sound like you're sitting in the studio with.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Take control of the airwaves. 855-450-FREE as in freedom. 855-450-3733. And with you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
Mark, you have anything you wish to share with us?
Generally not at the top of the hour.
Oh, you are correct, yeah. Well, let's go straight into it then. We've got Mike, who is calling in from Florida. Mike, what is on your mind? You're on Free Talk Live. I think we have lost Mike. All right, well, it happens.
Mike going once, Mike going twice. Just put him on hold, and it may be maybe some sound issue at the syndicate.
Fair enough. Well, we've got Tom calling in from Detroit, wants to talk about tariffs. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys. Well, I would like to discuss this, and I have some thoughts.
Okay.
One idea is that the work will come to the U.S., and maybe some of the people that are on welfare might get a job. We haven't produced washing machines, televisions, radios, anything in so long. Maybe it's time to bring it home.
Yeah, so that would increase wages in the U.S., but people aren't on welfare because they can't find a job. They're on welfare because they don't want to work enough to sustain themselves or have whatever it is they want to have.
So you are going to just jump right over what I just said?
No, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say central planning doesn't work when Democrats do it, and central planning won't work when Republicans do it either.
So let me get this right, okay? Again, I am not by any means in favor of government or
yes, you are.
Government control of free trade.
Yes, you
are.
But
the bottom line is, and you got to all agree to this, we don't make anything here anymore.
The United States,
nothing.
The United States has manufactures more products than it has ever manufactured in its history.
Usually in prisons.
Well, but it does it with robots.
Name one. Name what we make. You know what we make, my friend Ian? And this is why
my name's Mark,
right
but
now
go
I
ahead.
am unemployed and very displeased with it, okay? Because I'm looking for employment that doesn't make bombs or killing machines.
Gotcha.
I'm 58 years old. I have been in the workforce for many years, and I am trying with all my heart, with everything in my being, to find a job where I'm not making parts for a killing machine.
Well, have you considered Budweiser, Crayola, Harley-Davidson, Hershey's Chocolate, Jack Daniels, KitchenAid, or Cast Iron Cookware?
Are they all hiring?
All of which are made in the United States.
At $10.50 an hour? No.
Well, I don't know what they're paying.
So you want to be paid more as well.
Here in the Northeast, I can tell you that jobs are, they have warehouse jobs right now being advertised on the side of the road for $20 an hour. I just live here. I don't work at warehouses. I work at a radio show. I laud you, Mark.
Ian, those
Mark.
jobs
that is Mark.
that you're looking at, those jobs that you're looking at are headhunters filling your dreams. Okay.
Okay.
No, I know people who work for these jobs, and I know what they make. I worked for one over one summer when taxes were I know what the wages actually are.
And so continue.
Well, you're saying that that's not what they are, and I know that they are in this area. I mean, yeah, you're not going to get an unskilled labor job making, a middle-class income at only 40 hours a week. If we had tariffs, that might be more realistic.
Listen here, Missy. I am in the Detroit area. It is actually a very, very well-to-do at this point with
Detroit
jobs.
is.
Yep. And what I'm telling you is Detroit is well-to-do with jobs that have skills. My skills right now are in extreme need. But
then you should be able to find a job.
Well,
if that was true, you would be employed if you wanted to be.
Let me finish. Okay, with what's happening right now, with everything that's happening right now, everyone's kicking back, sitting back, and saying, if you were in business, if you owned a business, you would be doing the same thing. And now, for me going from $31.74 an hour, I'm getting offers at $20, $15, $18.
Big hit. Yeah, it's a big hit. I can't say anything specifically to your specific. I can only presume that you are the best person, most qualified to determine what is going on with your life and your employment. I'm not going to speak to that. I will, however, say that central planning doesn't work when Democrats do it, and central planning isn't going to work when Republicans do it. Tariffs are a bad idea because you can't artificially inflate the wages of U.S. workers and then artificially inflate the costs of their competition. That's not going to work.
Tom, thank you so much for the call. See, my issue is that if we impose these tariffs on washing machines, as an example, in order to bring washing machine production to the United States, so we slap this 25% cost on washing machines, making it more competitive to produce them locally. Okay, but the price of the washing machine just becomes permanently increased at that point. You're just paying 25% more for the same product to be locally made.
I mean, and $20 an hour is not like horrible wages for something that requires no skill and a set schedule, probably.
Don't forget that it's the government that messed with the economy that got it so that the washing machine manufacturers moved out of the country in the first place.
Yeah, they were the ones who broke it.
And I don't know what the reasons are entirely. I'm not an expert in global trade or anything, but I'd say this. There's a real problem with the notion that the washing machines should be made in China as opposed to the United States. Think about how much fuel is used by a tanker that's moving washing machines from I don't know what the closest port that makes washing machines is, but Beijing. I don't know where Beijing is either, but to L.A. and then putting them on trucks and trains and moving them across the United States versus making them in Ciudad Juarez or Tijuana. I mean, there's a lot of people in Mexico on the other side of the Mexican border that claim to want jobs. It would seem to me that NAFTA would have set this all up, but somehow, it makes more financial sense to make stuff in China. And I can only presume that that's the government that made it that way. The United States government, the people that we want to fix this problem.
See, I would assume it's wage disparity. And that, the Mexican average cost of labor is simply going to be higher than the Chinese one.
I don't think so. I don't think so anymore.
I'm not an expert on the subject, so I certainly don't know.
Not when we're talking about the cost of transportation.
Well, I mean, all it has to really do is float on the ocean. I mean, that's why waterways have historically been such utilized passages for commerce.
It's not floating. It's traveling at 25 knots.
I know that you can get really cheap shipping from China as long as you're willing to wait for it. So if you have like a steady, I need 20 washing machines a month, you just order a month in advance. Like,
yeah, 2 months, 3 months in advance.
The shipping doesn't cost that much.
I don't know.
I don't either. But
seems expensive to me. I mean,
I just don't like the idea.
The cost of a lot of things.
Because you're not like flying an airplane for every single order. Like you're filling up a whole boat. So if you divide that by every item, it's not expensive.
Well, I mean, there's still something to this, and the whole just having to float thing is why, cruise ships are generally frantic to try to fill empty cabins, while airplanes really don't care. They'll fly you if there's even only one person. And the difference is because it doesn't really proportionally to weight versus fuel spent, it doesn't cost nearly as much to ship something here via boat versus airplane.
I've had airlines take flights with 20 people, put them all in hotels, and wait until tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking it's exactly the opposite. Then maybe that it's cheaper to...
I've been on airplanes that were so not filled that they came and rearranged us so that the weight would be distributed in such a way that it was safer, or the plane wouldn't crash or whatever.
Maybe
there was
by
only
airline.
like 20 people or something like that.
That's nice because you can lift up the arms and lay across the seats. I like that.
Yeah, there was well enough for everybody to have like their own whole row, but apparently we're like all in the front, and they were like, the plane's not going to fly this way, some of y'all have to move.
Huh.
Interesting. Well, tariffs, government intervention in the economy, they're certainly not going to answer any questions or solve any problems. If you disagree, tell us what's on your mind. 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. It's 855-450-3733. Or if you want clearer quality, you can do like Bad Slave did and use the Discord call-in lines, which you can find at discord.freetalklive.com or discord.lrn.fm. It's Free Talk Live. Tell us what's on your mind. 855-450-FREE, as in freedom. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark. Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented gathering in the world. Freedom Fest theme this year is the Wild West. You can come see me in a cowboy outfit. You'll love it. It'll be a lot of fun. It's going to be Penn Jillette, Lenore Skenazy, Candace Owen, John Mackey, Kevin O'Leary, and Kevin Harrington of Shark Tank, Stephen Moore, Grover Norquist, all descending upon the Paris in Las Vegas from July 17th through the 20th. Libertarians, conservatives, liberals, all just open-minded people, mingling together to hear real debates and share real solutions and converse freely. Go get your tickets now at freedomfest.com/FTL. freedomfest.com/FTL. Use coupon code FTL50 and get a $50 discount. It's going to be a blast. Really going to be a lot of fun. Now, if you don't, somehow or another, you want a little more information, go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get the 5 best speeches from last year for free. Judge Napolitano, Alan Dershowitz, Charlie Kirk, Heather McDonald, John Mackey, all available to you for free at freedomfest.com/FTL. Freedom Fest is, like I said, on July the 17th through the 20th at the Paris in Las Vegas. freedomfest.com/FTL.
Are you really going to dress as a cowboy?
Oh, yes.
I hate I'm going to miss it.
I'll have pictures for you.
Perfect. Let's get back to the phones. We've got Dan calling from Scottsdale. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hi. So I'm having a problem with my wife. She makes custom hats for a living, like fedoras, baseball caps, and she's always kept me out of it. But the other day she decides that she's going to use my head as a dildo.
Yep, that's enough.
A for effort, I suppose. I mean,
no, there was no effort there.
No, and he got immediately dropped and dumped.
Yeah.
Well, he sat on hold for like 20 minutes for that. Poor guy. Get a hobby.
Y'all need something to do.
Well, we do have Mike in
I'm not
Florida.
sure if that word is somehow banned from the FCC by the FCC or anything, but
I don't want to fight
the
I don't want to fight the FCC about whether or not it's banned.
No.
But I mean, it was a pointless troll call. So we got Mike who is calling. I think it's the same Mike from Florida who attempted to call earlier. Mike, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, I was just calling about the conversation earlier regarding the matter of carrying your ID on you. Down here in Lake County, Florida, just giving a heads up to anybody who might be traveling through, going to the the attractions or what have you, or something by visiting somebody. In Lake County, it is the law in the whole county that you have to carry your picture ID. It doesn't have to be a driver's license, but it has to be a picture ID that you carry on you at all times.
What if you don't have an ID?
Well, that's an excellent question. I mean, I appreciate what y'all present there on the radio program and on the internet and stuff, and I agree with a lot of what y'all are talking about. It's just, they'll definitely harass you.
Is it?
Usually I carried my driver's license in my wallet in my glove box, and go in the grocery store or whatever. I'm not going to carry just go in and go groceries, but I've been requested, show your ID.
Huh.
I mean, that is straight out of any sort of totalitarian government playbook.
Is it just a county rule? I mean, Lake County couldn't have its own rules.
Just for Lake County itself proper. It's not in the rest of the state.
Those that are wiser than us in Tavares just decided that they were going to, come up with a rule, huh?
Apparently that's the history.
No,
of
is that an official statute, or is that something that the cops just kind of made up and enforce?
No, it's a statute in the county itself.
I'm not terribly surprised to hear that the state would go to that lengths. In whatever.
Well, the state itself, it's just the local.
When I say state, I don't mean like the state of Florida. I mean the state apparatus, the government.
Well, the county gets its power from the state. I'm surprised to see that Lake County has 350,000 people in it. I thought of this. I mean, to me, this is, you said Lake County, I thought rednecks, but
No, it's a lot of retirement stuff.
Yeah, Claremont.
Wealthier people in some areas.
Yeah, it's part of the Orlando Metro.
Now, is this because of the Cuban migrants
north of there?
Huh.
That they,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is this because of the Cuban migrants that they implemented this law and began enforcing it?
I don't know actually why they do it.
No, I don't think so.
Like you said, I think it's an oppressive thing.
It's absolutely oppressive. I mean, it's jarring to me to find out that that there are multiple jurisdictions where if the police ask you for identification, you not only have to stop and actually speak to them, you have to surrender your identifying information to them, like you're trying to escape East Berlin or something.
You know what they say about Florida? Come on vacation, leave on probation, return on extradition.
I didn't know they said that about Florida, but
they
it's
say that
good
about
to know.
a lot of places, though. So,
is Florida really that bad? I have never been.
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't know. I've lived in Florida and I've lived in New Hampshire, and that's basically where I've lived. Do I feel freer in New Hampshire? Not really. I mean, Florida, they never seemed to bother me much. There was certainly a larger police presence, but I didn't have too much trouble when I got out of prison. But,
that's a positive.
Lots of people in prison said that it was terrible. I don't know. I mean, you can't really listen to convicts and their stories about how oppressive the police state is. I tend to not believe the things
actually,
they say.
I would say that's probably the people that you should listen to about how oppressive the police state is.
Yeah, I listened to them long enough that I really grew to kind of be bored with the things they said.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it because most of them are like arsonists or murderers or rapists or something?
It's because most of them have IQs lower than 100. That's the reason.
Oh, yeah.
It's hard
that
to
would
talk
get
to
frustrating.
dumb people on a regular basis.
That was your primary company, is these.
Yeah. Don't forget.
Yeah, that would be the worst part. Aside from not necessarily getting like
freedom,
maintenance. Well, yeah, I think the things that would scare me most about jail is not being able to have access to like maintenance medical care, and to be like surrounded by stupid people, whether that's inmates or guards, and just not be able to have a conversation for like all these years.
Well, I mean, a lot of them may be pretending to be more stupid than they actually are as well. I mean, going back to that's the reason that in high school it's considered to be bad to be smart. That whole jocular primate barbaric mentality is to be strong, not smart. So it could be possible that a lot of them are smarter than they pretend to be, but they've just become accustomed to pretending to be kind of dumb and big and brutish.
Perhaps that's the case. Whenever I found somebody with whom I could converse, as opposed to conversating, I just stuck with that person for a while and just chatted away and had a nice time with that. But a lot of times I had to talk to officers to get my fix.
Oh, that's never good in prison, I hear.
That's fine.
It's also true that the less smart you are, the more likely you are to not be able to hire a good attorney, or the more likely you are to get caught, whether you did something or not. So I believe that stat.
Oh, I worked in the computer lab and taught people rudimentary English so that they could pass their GEDs and kind of live life. And I was stunned at what passed for literacy. I mean, that was what passed for literacy stunned me.
I mean, you're not wrong, and the Dunning-Kruger effect would tell me that I'm vastly overestimating the average person's intelligence.
Oh, yeah.
And that they are significantly dumber than I would like to think, and that spending any amount of time with them would make that clear. 855-450-FREE, as in freedom, 855-450-3733.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Give us a call, 855-450-FREE as in freedom. And with you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And before we dive back into it, I am going to Forkfest if you happen to be bored within the next week and a half or whatever. I can't do the math on the top of my head. I think it's 10 days. And you can join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians this summer from June the 13th until June the 18th for Forkfest 2019 at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. It happens right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival, also known as Porkfest.
Now, they're just called the White Mountains. They're not white during June.
But it's decentralized, which means that no one is in charge and that there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping or RV site or your motel room with Rogers Campground.
Now, of course, there's a cost for the site.
Obviously.
Yeah, but that's not ours.
No. You can simply relax and go camping with other liberty lovers, or you can create whatever experience you'd like to have. I believe there's Jay Noon, who hosts Free Talk Live, I think, on Thursday nights, is going to be doing a sort of band camp there. There was a chess tournament there last year that didn't get a lot of attendees, but still happened. A lot of cool stuff happens because it's all just, hey, I feel like doing this thing. Let's do this thing.
Why not?
You can connect with other Forkfesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the Forkfest forum because all of it is unofficial. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. Once more, that's forkfest.party. It's going to be an awesome event, and I look forward to it. Let's get back to the phones. We've got David calling in from New Mexico. David, what is on your mind? You're on Free Talk Live.
Several things. Hey, Mark, did you dust off your old outfit from your Village People days?
Well, I'm wearing my Thanos sweatshirt today. I don't know what village. Which village? Oh, I see.
I mean,
you said I was going to be a cowboy.
Gotcha. Your cowboy outfit for the wild, wild, wild west.
You know, I was the construction worker when I did the YMCA.
Oh, I swear that was you wearing the chaps with no pants.
That may have been me.
Oh, there you go. Oh, wrong party. Sorry. My memory's bad. I was doing too much stuff back then.
That's a problem we all know well.
Yeah. Yeah, that I'm getting good at identifying your trolls. Before the guy even said a word, I was guessing it was going to be a troll coming out of Scottsdale. I figured that's what it was going to be. And then when he said his first word, I don't even remember what it was, but just the voice alone, I was waiting for it, and sure enough.
If somebody's calling us for marital help, I mean, they're probably confused to begin with.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. I know that people do call shows to do that, but I don't know that we're qualified.
Well, I don't know that anybody's qualified, but you got a problem with your wife, I suppose you can call in at 855-450-3733. But, you know, this joke, this she's a hat maker thing just really was a setup.
Yeah. Yeah, we were ready for it. And luckily we got it before anything really happened.
All right. On your airline deal, I remember when I was flying for the airlines, that they would do whatever was most cost effective. If they had to buy somebody out, give them a free round trip or two to ask them to wait for the next flight. They would do that. Whatever was costing them less, spending the fuel and the hours on the airplane to fly the trip, or buying out the whatever few passengers they had. They would do whatever was most cost effective.
They sure will. They'll still do that. They're doing calculations all the time.
I do remember having the luxury of riding across the Atlantic on a wide body, having, like you said, an entire row across the Atlantic to lay down. Matter of fact, there were multiple rows. I could have slept half the night on one row and then moved to several others. And there was probably like 100 people on the airplane one time. That was pretty cool.
I was taking a flight back from Tokyo very recently here, whether I wanted to or not. And
minus your maple syrup?
Minus my maple syrup. This bastards took my maple syrup. And the plane had that we were there's United, and they have several different, like the economy plus, and then they have another one, and then they have first class, and I don't know what they're all broken out into, but we were kind of full from. I was in the economy plus, but everything from there on back was kind of full. There were enough of them. But the section that was in between first class and economy plus, whatever that's called, something between, I don't know, second class. It's not first class. But second class was basically empty, but they wouldn't let any of us go up in there because we hadn't paid the money. So,
of course,
this is weird.
Yeah. Huh. Usually they let, in my day, they would let, many people, they actually used it as a perk. If they had the unsold space in a more luxurious seating, they would give it up because it made their customers happy. I don't know why they wouldn't do it nowadays.
Well, because that encourages you to not buy it in hopes that it might be there for free.
Yeah, true.
Which is
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, which is part of why they stopped doing the last minute discounts. To where if they had some seats left, they would do some pretty heavy discounts, but they quit doing that because then everybody just waited till the last minute to buy a ticket.
Got it. Yeah, understood. The what I was calling about was the latest. This has actually been going on for 2 years. Like under the category of that New Mexico judge that I was describing to you, embezzling money from the dead guy, and then the head of the FBI in New Mexico stating that New Mexico is the most corrupt state in the nation. Here's a fun one. For the last 2 years, I've been letting a local retailer steal from me, so that I would have enough proof to take it to the appropriate places to hopefully put them in jail, or at least get them on probation. And I had previously made a report to the FBI, and they directed me to Department of Agriculture because these people I'm on assistance, not because I'm using your welfare, but because I sued the people of the U.S. and the state of New Mexico for the benefit when they destroyed my life by trafficking my children. They did some damage and they incurred some debt, and I made sure to enforce my rights, and I collected on that debt. And so I'm using SNAP, EBT, food stamps, and some other benefits. But like I said, I
get them for all you can get them, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, if you're getting your own money back, I don't care.
Right, but even if I wasn't getting my own money back, what I'm saying is I was damaged by the citizens of this country not reining in their government as I would do if there were more of me. But the people as they are did not rein in their government, and their government damaged me, and I sued for the damage, and now I'm collecting on it. And so since I'm talking about what are traditionally viewed as welfare benefits, that's the how I ended up here.
That's how you view it.
And pardon?
That's how you view it. Yes.
Well, that's how it is. It's not even how I view it.
Well,
the people.
You can't sue somebody for assistance, right?
No, you can. You have to fight. I'm not suing. This is what I'm on. I didn't get welfare just because I'm poor. I got welfare because the people of the United States let your government damage me, and I fought back.
This is literally true of everyone on welfare. They were all damaged by the inflationary policies and debt creation policies.
True, but you're steering away from the point I'm making, and that is that let me super simplify it. You, the people, through your government, ran me over or punched me or knifed me or something wrongfully, and I fought back legally and sued you for the damage you're done, and now I'm collecting on it. So it's not the same thing. Anyway, that's not my point. I only mentioned that because
okay, go ahead, make your point.
It's not what I called about. It's not what I called about. I'm simply explaining myself so that I'm trying to retain my dignity. I'm not using your welfare benefits because I'm too lazy to work. I'm using them because I sued for them because you damaged me. That's the difference. So,
well, thank you for the call, David. Everyone has their reasons. They vary significantly from one person to the next, but I would certainly say we've all been damaged by government. You might disagree. You might love the government. Give us a call and let us know. 855-450-3733, 855-450, free as in Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. If you're quick, you can still get on the air. Give us a call at 855-450-3733. Again, that's 855-450-FREE, as in Free Talk Live. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Melanie,
and Mark.
And we initially, before we got into the rabbit holes, we're trying to get into this story coming up to us from Australia, where evidently they want to make it illegal, or some person wants to make it illegal to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And we didn't get too deeply into that because it actually gets a bit worse in her little... The only person here who it seems to be is hysterical is the author of this write.
Right. She's pointing the fingers. Everybody's hysterical. Except me. I'm going to make a reasoned case why you shouldn't be able to raise your children.
Yeah, she's all worried about the economy and how it's being impacted and things like that by stay-at-home moms. Oh, no, they're not out there buying you televisions and buying gasoline and all of these other things that make Australia great again. And now the economy is suffering for it. To me, it may not necessarily be hysterical depending on how emotionally wound up they are. But it's certainly not a rational and logical position for a person to take.
It's not. And even if you understand economics whatsoever, it's not unless you just really love corporations to the exclusion of all other entities, to the exclusion of all people.
Now, her position is what exactly? Have you gotten that far into the article?
Yeah, so she basically says that it's better for the economy because they're talking about the, lack of female workforce participation rates, which is kind of an irrelevant factor and not like a goal in and of itself unless you're insane.
Well, there's a certain segment of feminism out there that thinks that the most important thing a woman can do is have a job. Now, I don't understand that because they don't seem to think that about men necessarily. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing you can do is pursue what you want to pursue in life. And if what you want to pursue in life is a family, probably the best way to do that, I would think almost inarguably the best way to do that is to, for somebody to stay at home and raise them. Now, it doesn't have to be the man. It's just traditionally been it doesn't have to be the woman that stays home. It's just traditionally the man goes out there and, makes the money and brings things home. That's not necessarily how a particular family might operate in modern society.
But if you have one of each as a parent, then nature kind of has an opinion on which one that should be.
Yes.
Because it's kind of going to force the woman to do some of the main child care.
Yeah, she has to stay home
for at least 9 months for each kid.
Right. She's going to have to stay home for some period of time because of, nursing and just recuperation and these kind of things. Not every woman nurses. Many do, and more are doing it every day, and I think that's great. Because I think it's better. That's what those things are for. Let's use them for what God meant them to be.
And if you're a feminist who believes in the wage gap, why wouldn't you have the person who's just going to make more money for no reason be the one that goes out and works?
Oh.
There's an excerpt in this article I think we really have to get into.
Okay, which one?
Rather than wail about the supposed liberation in a woman's right to choose to shun paid employment, we should make it a legal requirement that all parents of children of school age or older are gainfully employed.
Wow.
So for all of her talk about liberation, she wants to pass laws forcing all parents to be gainfully employed.
And that in and of itself does not create great working conditions, even if you ignore all the other problems with it. There are segments of the population that are legally required to be gainfully employed. They're called some immigrants and people on probation.
Yeah.
They can't quit and their employers know it. What do you think that does to their wages and working conditions?
Makes them worse. Well, there's some dads that have to be gainfully employed, too. They don't have to be at the particular place. In many cases, immigrants, I think the reason that their conditions tend to be worse is because they have to work at the place that they work at. They can't switch jobs. Whereas,
depending on what kind of visa you have, yeah, that can be true, too.
Yeah.
So I guess it's probably more in line with probation. But, yeah, so your boss knows. Unless you can get a new job today or tomorrow.
Which is why it's important to acquire skills that make you employable rather than being, as the caller earlier suggested, just an unskilled laborer. Those are a dime a dozen. You can import 50 people in from Mexico who will do that job for $3 an hour.
Well, yeah, and even if you have skills, and even if you have skills that are actually in high demand, then you're not necessarily going to be able to get a job literally the next day. It might take a week or something to...
Yeah, but if your skills are actually there, they are in high demand, then you will be making enough money where you don't absolutely have to have one.
Right, but if it's a legal requirement, that's a whole different story. So yeah, you're going to have at least a week's worth of savings, so you'll be fine. But if the government of Australia says it is a crime to not have a job, I mean, I don't know what the detail... There's not a bill that they're putting up, so maybe there's going to be some details to that, but maybe you don't have a week to...
Maybe there are no job openings.
Yeah.
What do you do in that event? What if you're 17 years old, you just turned 18, suddenly it's a legal requirement for you to have a job, but there are no jobs in your town at all?
Well,
and I realize that's extremely unlikely.
This is the weird part about it. She doesn't want to make it a legal requirement for all able-bodied adults. She wants it to make a legal requirement for all parents of school-age or older children.
You're correct.
So
it's crazy.
I guess you could be a bum and be 18, and that's fine.
Have
but
a kid,
if you have a kid and have something to actually do all day, then because we don't really care if you work, right? They just care if they can get your kid.
You mean the state?
The state, yeah.
Well, that's what this lunatic statist wants. This authoritarian is looking to, pretend as though the economy is their concern, or women's liberation, or women working, or whatever. But really, what she wants is every kid in school, so that we can indoctrinate them from pre-K on up to their bachelor's degree, which everybody should have, even if it's in underwater basket weaving.
Well, she would disagree. She says that only when the female half of the population is expected to hold down a job and earn money to pay the bills in the same way that men are routinely expected to do so, only then will we see changes for the better for either gender. So she has it warped in her head that she can somehow liberate people or achieve some kind of equality by legislating and requiring everyone, including the women who have children and want to stay at home and take care of their children, which is their prerogative, to do this thing that she wants them to do.
Because it's definitely more efficient to everybody try to do both things than for one person to do one thing and the other person to do the other thing. So I can't just go to work and then have somebody else worry about appointments at school and doctor's visits and everything else. We have to both do both so that there's just nothing but chaos.
Fair point. I mean, yeah, it's ideally there are at least two parents in a household and not one parent.
But what Melanie's saying is that if, like for instance, my wife is the one who's concerned with the doctor's appointments. If Jack had to rely on me for doctor's appointments, he'd never go to one because I would forget. And I don't know them in the first place. I don't set them. I don't consider it my problem. It is not my problem. If she missed an appointment and she comes to me like, Mark, why didn't you say something about Jack's doctor's appointment?
Like, that's your job.
My jaw would flap at her. I'd be like, what? I can't believe you're even suggesting this.
Yeah, so the
not my problem.
Yeah, it's division of labor, not just the economic concept of division of labor, but just the efficiency in your life concept of division of labor.
Fair point. Well, she seems to think that as long as we cling to the lie that only a stay-at-home mom is best placed to assume the responsibilities of caregiver, then working fathers will continue to feel insecure about stepping off the corporate treadmill to spend more time with their children. So she seems to want to alleviate not just the economic hardships caused by these women who dare to not work, but the hardships it places on the fathers, which may or may not be founded, I don't know, requiring them to work more hours to make up the difference by just having one income.
Yeah, I mean, I would happily do that. If we're talking about having to deal with kids, which not my desire to do, I would rather work. You know what, honey, we need some more money. Fine, I'll go out and get a second job because I don't want to deal with that stuff. I would rather her stay home and do those sorts of things. I don't have any interest in them.
Well, what about the fathers who want to do those sorts of things but feel like they can't because they instead have to be out there working?
Why do they need this lady to pass a law so that they can't handle their wife?
Yeah, so so they're passing a law.
Probably not.
So they have to work too much. So you want to pass a law to increase the supply of labor.
Yeah.
That is counterproductive if that's your actual goal.
Well, I think the whole thing is counterproductive. I don't think she really knows what her goal is, or she's being extremely clever.
She's mad.
She's upset. This has been Free Talk Live. Same time tomorrow night. Be sure to check back www.freetalklive.com.
All right, it's another edition of the Edgington Post Show. I am Mark Edge, and this is another interview for Free Talk Live, and I've got with me today Jo Ann Skousen, who is the wife of Mark Skousen, whom we interviewed on Free Talk Live probably 3 weeks to a month ago. Jo Ann, you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks for having me, Mark.
And we're going to talk about your passion today, which is the Anthem Film Festival, which goes on in conjunction with Freedom Fest.
That's right. I started Anthem about 10 years ago because I wanted to create a venue for libertarian filmmakers or any filmmakers who are passionate about individuality, accountability, self-reliance, films that really celebrate the individual and observe the problems that happen when governments become too entangled in our personal lives. So I started out 10 years ago with a handful of films, a handful of attendees, and it has grown and grown until I'm just really proud of what we've accomplished with this film festival and with the films that are starting to be generated, because there is a place that you can take your non-Hollywood film and have it screened in front of hundreds of people.
Can you tell me some of the films that are going to be being shown this year?
Oh, sure. You know, I'll tell you the grouping that I'm most surprised by and most proud of is a grouping of Iranian films. All of a sudden this year, I started getting emails from filmmakers in Iran who would tell me over and over again, I want to submit my film to your festival, but they can't get their money out. They can't send money. They can't. So I always have to give them a fee waiver, which I'm happy to do. I think they found me because last year I had an Iranian film that won an award.
I see.
And somehow that got out. And I just have these wonderful Iranian films that I'm going to be showing.
And are these people who are, like pining for more freedom in their lives? I mean,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I probably received 30 or 40 from Iran, and I'm screening 4 of them. They're all short narratives. And they're very evocative. The quality of the filmmaking is amazing. But they talk about the unintended consequences or the personal consequences, the individual consequences of a war that goes on and on and on. And they're very moving, extremely well done. So I'm really proud of that aspect of the festival. And the fact that they're basically smuggling their stories out of Iran through the satellite up in the air.
That is an amazing aspect of all this. And look at what technology has given us, the opportunity for, somebody to speak that would have whose voices would have never been heard previously.
Exactly. So I'm really proud of those. And I have some documentaries that are really hard hitting. There's one called The Creepy Line. It tells the story of Google and how it got started the surveillance. The title comes from a quote. It comes from a quote from the CEO of Google, where he said, "The Google policy on a lot of things is to get right up to the creepy line and not cross it." So it's not about creepiness like pedophilia or something. It's about the creepiness of inviting Google into your house, inviting Alexa into your house, and how they use that. And it can be good. I love getting ads that are targeted at me when I'm actually looking for something, but it's also kind of creepy that they know what I'm looking at. Yeah. So, and then we have a wonderful panel afterwards with to talk about the creepy line, the invasion of internet surveillance, and that's one of the things we do at Anthem. We include panels that we cull from Freedom Fest, and we bring these experts over, and we have panels after our screenings to talk about the topics. Yeah. Another one, the fight of our lives, defeating the ideological war against the West, and it talks about how quickly we are giving up our foundational culture in the name of diversity and fairness and so forth, tolerance, and that we could lose it in just a very few years.
Yeah, I'm always curious about the different ideas that these filmmakers have, and they have so few ways of getting themselves heard. There's these feeder mechanisms for us to consume media, and if it doesn't get through the filter on that feeder mechanism, it gets much more difficult for a filmmaker to make it through.
Exactly. Yeah, and so they have a lot of control over what we can see, and that's one reason I started this festival, because I wanted to provide an alternative so that these other voices could be heard and another side. Now, of course, we have an audience that's already open to that, but our hope is that, and this has happened actually, where when your film is accepted into a festival, and especially if it wins an award of some sort, then the next festival programmer who is considering it sees that another festival thought it was good enough not only to present but to give an award to, so they're more likely to screen it. So in that way, there's a ripple effect, and these ideas about liberty are seen in more and more festivals.
Yeah, and I didn't agree by any stretch of the imagination with every film that I saw at Anthem Film Festival, and why would I? They're not my films. I didn't make them. But what I did really like was the opportunity to see all these people's voices, and I wasn't bored. And I think that's probably the most important thing when you're consuming media is that at the very least you're entertained.
Yes, that's true. And we do give an alternative. My husband, of course, loves the speakers and the panels and the debates that he puts on at Freedom Fest. He always says to me, I can't understand why anyone would choose to go to a movie instead of listening to these speakers live. But, there's something wonderful about film. You make a connection. There's an emotional connection with the characters on the film. There's an emotional arc, even if it's a documentary rather than a fictional story. The editing creates an emotional arc, and you get sucked in. You get this passionate feeling for what you're watching on the screen, and I think film can be much more effective, much more powerful than a speech or a lecture.
When it comes to the debates, I agree completely with your husband. I'm never choosing the films over the debates because I always want to see these guys going at it. And that's my preference, and no doubt there are people that choose to do the alternative. And that's the thing about Freedom Fest is there's got to be about 4 different things to do at any given time, and then of course the 5th is hang out in the hallways and talk to the people who are going through the vendor area and all that stuff.
It's all about choice, and we give you so many choices. I agree, and I like to go back and forth too. I agree. The debates. I mean that debate with Jeff Tucker about Trump 2 years ago, it was incredible. It was so fiery. Who would want to miss that? So there are a few times when I don't screen films, and it's during our keynote speakers, the mock trial, those kinds of events. We don't have any films running so that we don't have to make that choice. I would hate to put a filmmaker up against our William Shatner,
Right.
and hope that some people show up. So I do program it with that in mind.
This year's keynote is Penn Jillette, who I think is going to bring the house down. He's certainly a very entertaining guy, in so much as people pay a great deal for the tickets just to go see him for a few hours. And I think it's going to be a great event. Jo Ann, I'm kind of curious. I know that you and Mark have been doing Freedom Fest. Are we over 10 years now, right?
Yes. The very first one was actually Fee Fest. It was when Mark was president of the Foundation for Economic Education. And so we did a big national convention for Fee. And then we did it in association with Young Americans for Freedom for about 3 years. And then we just decided to take it back, do it ourselves, make it a for-profit rather than a nonprofit event. And so we've been doing that since 2007.
So this is such a big festival. This is the largest liberty-oriented festival in the world, and there are people from around the world that come to the event. I'm curious, is this a full-time job? I mean, in like the full year round. Do you take
We work on it year round. It's full-time. We have 3 full-time employees, a couple of part-time employees, and then Mark and I. But we have other things we do. Mark writes his financial newsletter, investment newsletter. We both teach in college, and so we have a lot of other things going on. But we do have 3 full-time employees and some part-time employees who help us with putting it together.
Now,
and it takes place July 17th to the 20th at Paris Resort, and you can buy tickets at freedomfest.com, or you can go to anthemfilmfestival.com, because we actually have a film lovers pass. If people just want to watch movies for 4 days, and we have the panels, we have about a dozen panels that have Freedom Fest speakers, they can do that for $195. It's a real bargain.
That includes, I presume, the vendor area, because you have to pass through the vendor area to get to the last go around.
You get the opening cocktail reception, the exhibit hall area, and then all the film events, which include about a dozen panels that have the regular speakers. So for people who just want to watch movies, it's a great bargain. Or if you want to bring someone with you, maybe you want to introduce your child or your grandchild to film or to the ideas of liberty, but you know they're going to be bored in the lectures. I have a lot of teenagers who just hang out in the film festival all the time, and they're being introduced to the films. We have this great grouping of satires this year where they're funny, they're fun, but they make the point about liberty. So that's going to be a great grouping of films as well.
Do the people who pay for the regular Freedom Fest ticket get the Anthem Film Festival included?
Yes, Anthem is included for the Freedom Fest ticket. So that's what we recommend, of course, is that they do the Freedom Fest ticket, and then that includes all of the Anthem films and panels, and then the Film Lovers Pass is just for the film. So, but if you have a Freedom Fest ticket, you're in to the film festival.
I love it, the event. I really enjoy it, and I recommend people go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get your tickets there. If you just want to check out and see what it's like, we have the top 5 speeches from last year available at freedomfest.com/FTL. I'm not sure whether you can hunt that down on the Freedom Fest website elsewhere, but I know that it's very easy to find it right there before you sign up at freedomfest.com/FTL. Jo Ann, thank you so much for your taking some time with me.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to seeing you there.